Okay, hello everyone. I'm Rahul Nath, and today I'll speak about affordable motion capture and face capture. This talk is essentially for anyone who's from production, animation, game design, film previs, or even virtual production. So, hopefully, by the end of this talk, you get a good idea of what affordable motion capture means, what are the important things you have to have in your team to build this. And of course, you can always ask me questions later on. I have a few videos and also a demo prepared for you. In fact, what I'm wearing now is a motion capture suit. So, where do we start? So, a little bit about me before we start. I am a game designer, producer, filmmaker, and now I'm also into education. And I'm obsessed with making production pipelines as smooth as possible in the industry. So, whether it's games, whether it's films, whether it's education, I do want to provide tools and methods for team members to make things smoother and hopefully avoid crunch. I've been working for about 15 years in this particular industry, and I specialize in leading mid-sized teams, which becomes very important in terms of how you manage the production. I am definitely not an animator or an artist. I'm more of a game designer and a producer who works with animators, artists, and engineers to make our processes faster and smoother so that we don't run into the age-old problem of crunch. Now, why motion capture and what will we be talking about? So if you see this video over here, this nice video of Bruce Lee, that's me in a motion capture suit. And the character is created by the character creator software, but all the movements are done without any cleanup. You know, so I'll be speaking about why we adapted motion capture, integrating it into your workflow, performance aspect of motion capture, which is, according to me, the most important part, using Live Link to stream directly to a 3D model, and also benefits to the production pipeline. I'll try to keep it around 30 minutes for the presentation and maybe 5 minutes for a demo. And then we can have question answers, or you can even always add me on LinkedIn and ask me more questions about any production pipelines. So moving on. Why did we consider motion capture in the first place? Well, the thing is that currently in my workplace, there are multiple mid-size and small teams. These are maybe 13 teams of people who, with each team comprising of people about 14 to 15. And I was looking for leaner production pipelines. And one of the problems we had is not every team has a dedicated artist or animator. So even the artists or animators, their workload is going between different teams. And we found that over a period of time, even our designers had to do a lot of art, they had to do a lot of animation. And of course, that wouldn't be as good as someone who's professional doing it. So we wanted to smoothen down the pipeline. We wanted to give the artist also the benefit of working with a pipeline which would help them reach a first pass or second pass much earlier. So one important thing to understand is motion capture definitely does not replace animators or artists. It's there to empower them. It is definitely not magic. It's not something that you will wear a suit and everything will be perfect. There's a cleanup process too. But as a timeline, it really helps your process to reach a first pass, second pass of a project very quickly. So to show you a little bit in terms of another video, if you see, this is an original version done by an animator, and this is a mocap version of the same 3D model. And what we also found is in the mocap version, we can get a lot more detailing that we could not get in an original version. And the great thing was we could also get the whole team involved. So the designers could be more involved. The different artists, even if they are not working on this particular animation, they could be involved too. So it got the team a lot closer and together. So going on. So we wanted to better understand turnaround times and more team members involved in characterization and feel of the game. We also wanted to eliminate guesswork. As you know, I'm guessing most of you are from the game industry, maybe from films, maybe from training and simulation. I'm a big believer that a lot of times design documents are important, but they don't work 100% of the time because we cannot read everyone's mind. And words, well, the problem with words is I might be talking about how a character moves, how a character feels, but the other person's interpretation might be completely different. And to minimize that, I think we got motion capture and we got live link on both so that everyone could understand what's the project we are making, how much time would it take, and what are the bumps we'll face on the road. So what were our options? Well, our options were Rococo, Perception Neuron, Xsense. Like I said, we were talking about affordable motion capture. We ended up going with Rococo based on our budget. I do want to note also that I'm not sponsoring any project or product here, whether it's Rococo or Unreal or even Character Creator from Realusion. I just come as a user. So we went for Rococo because it fit into our budget. We also kind of got a lot of good reviews about it. And so far, we haven't had any regrets with it. Now, a few things. Well, how does the process work? Well, you set up the suit with an actor profile, which I'll show you. And the second part is you get good performance capture. So what that means is the actor who's wearing the suit, they must be able to express themselves. They must have fluid body movements. They must not be camera shy, okay? Because when you get a wrong actor for the capture, your whole capture session might go badly and your cleanup will be more. So when I say actor, I don't mean that it has to be a trained actor like someone from Hollywood or from any other industry. It just needs to be someone from your team who's comfortable wearing the suit and hopefully not getting embarrassed while wearing it and doing all kinds of crazy things. You can also use the live link to see the effects of the suit on a 3D model in real time. And you, of course, have to export it for some cleanup. A lot of your cleanup will depend on the kind of the kind of performance you capture. And I'll go into that a little more. And then eventually you integrate whatever you have got into games, previs, or films. So I was talking about setting up the actor. I don't know whether this is true for Perception Neuron, but definitely for Xsense and Rococo. It is good to get the measurements of your actor correct. So the measurements need to be accurate in my observation, because the suit will react to the measurement. But the advantage is your 3D model or your 3D character can be a giant, it can be a dwarf, it can be anything, and the suit will relay that information. But your actor profile must be accurate. The other important thing is that when you're looking at your actor profile and suits come in different sizes. So you want to kind of base it based on, let's say, the average size of your studio in terms of measurements of your country. Since we are from Asia, we normally order the medium-sized suit because that would fit across a bigger range as opposed to, let's say, large or XL. So that is something to take into account. But every time we do a motion capture and there's a new actor who comes in, whether it is a designer, programmer, artist, or a student, we will do a measurement and we'll save the profile for them. So setting up an actor profile is important, but I also want to give a disclaimer that for Rococo, it is very important to use a dedicated router. I've seen that the data that you capture, if you're using it on a shared Wi-Fi as opposed to a dedicated router, is going to be very different. In fact, later when I show you the demo, I'll take my webcam here and I'll point it at another laptop because that's the one which is using the dedicated router. So you can see over here that this is me in the suit. This is the Rococo model. And you can see it's pretty accurate in terms of how it's relaying information around the environment. I've heard Xsense is also very accurate, but there are a few things with Rococo you do have to keep in mind. You cannot have a lot of magnetic interference too. And like I said, dedicated router. If you don't have a dedicated router, there will be many, many problems. And a good dedicated router, something that can take care of all the capture. So here I'm doing some martial art moves, some judo moves, some jiu-jitsu moves, which I'll export later, and then I can play around with it. So you can also use face capture and body capture at the same time. As you can see here, now I not only have my body tracked, I even have my face tracked. And the face is being tracked by the application in iPhone. Now, for face tracking, you can use either Rococo Remote, or what I do for especially Live Link is I use an external app, which is called a Live Face app. It comes from Realusion. So it is really up to you what kind of setup you want. The good thing about it is after a lot of experimentation, you can mix and match. Now, my advice normally is that if you're doing an action scene, or if you're doing a scene which has a lot of stress on the body, you can do the body capture first and you do the face capture separately. Because like, let's say if I'm doing a scene where it requires me to shoot a lot and all these things later on when I'm performing, because normally a performance takes about 1 to 2 hours, my performance will dip because the head rig and all these things can be quite a load to carry around. So, performance requires an actor who has rehearsed and prepared, a couple of technical assistants, and a performance director. So what I normally do, and this is just my pipeline, yours might be different if you're considering this, is if I'm doing performance capture with someone, I will first ask the people to go and rehearse without the suit, note down every animation pose they require, note down every animation sequence they require, be comfortable with the actor, and then only start recording. So over here, you can see in this video, we have someone acting as though they are pushing a patient in a hospital, and of course with COVID, it's quite interesting. We all have to do it with safety and all that thing. But you can see over here, the capture, we are getting quite clean data over here, and we are also getting the mass of the chair. So that's another important thing. You need to integrate props into your capture scenario. Similarly, there was another team which came up to me and they said that they wanted kind of a superhero flying, pose. And what we did was we used a little bit of creativity, as you can see over here. And we used this Rococo mesh essentially, but for the floating superhero action, we got someone to push the person back and forth. And then as you can see in the result, we got quite good results with it. So the big advantage of it is you can really be creative with it, but you should be creative with it because, again, like I said, it's not magic. It requires props, it requires collaboration. And like I said in the previous slide too, it also requires a director. So there should be one person who's dedicated just to direct people on the scene. And as you can see over here too, I'm the one who's directing these two actors. They are doing a boxing virtual reality app. Over here, actually, if you can see, I'm using the live link where the capture is directly streamed to the 3D model. And the person here who's a technical assistant, he's there to give a reference for our actor as he punches. So think of motion capture, whether you're doing it for games or anything else, it's a lot like filmmaking process. You have to take multiple takes, you have to evaluate the take, and then you have to go like, okay, this is the one we are going to go for. And usually it's good to do at least 2 to 3 takes because you'll have more options of what to use at the end of the day. So whoever is the director in your team, again, he may be a game designer, she may be a game director, or even maybe an animator. It's important for them to have a sense of movement, a sense of timing, and exactly visualize what they want as an end process. Like I said, I'm not an animator or an artist, but I have directed films. That's why I have a sense of movement and what I need from the actors. So you can also use Live Link, like what I said, and I'll show you later, where the capture is directly streamed to a 3D model. So in this example, you'll see we are using some props as swords, and we are doing a previous scene. And the capture is directly being streamed to a 3D model on our laptop. So the good thing about this is this reduces a lot of cleanup, especially when it comes to clipping. It is extremely accurate. And then and there, we can do a soft cleanup and we can go like, hey, does this work for us? Does this doesn't work for us? Is the rig getting affected in any way? And we also know the props to use, and we can also change the character type, So really advantageous in terms of how we can use it. So going forward, the great thing about Live Link in my next example you'll see is you can actually integrate it with a 3D environment of yours too. So over here, what I'm doing is I'm integrating my 3D character through motion capture in a 3D environment where the lighting is done up, where the meshes are already inside of Unreal, and I'm just doing some normal test movements. So this is important if you want to test a character directly against the environment. Maybe you want to do a cinematic scene. You can see I have karate hands because I'm not using Rococo gloves right now, or I'm not using leap motion, but that is a very small thing. Depending on what your style is, you can easily get leap motion or gloves, or, I'm sure Xsense also has their own thing. So that really isn't a huge problem. But the great thing about this is if I want to change the environment from day to night, if I want to change the lighting in the environment and see it against the character, if I want the character to use certain props, I can again do it. So a lot of these school videos that you see on virtual production and integration, all this I've done sitting at my home. So that's great. A few years ago, I could have never done something like this sitting at my home. So a few examples before I'll do a quick live demo. And yeah, I know I'm going a bit fast, but hopefully everyone can follow what I'm saying. So first of all, let's see what you can get with 2 hours of motion capture. So this is something I did with the team 2 weeks ago. And all these animations that you see over here were done in 2 hours. So the big advantage of mocap is also that, let's say you have an idle pose, and in your mind you have thought of only one idle pose. But with mocap, what we can do is we can, because the process is so fast, we can go like, let's try 5 idle poses, and then we'll cycle among them. Let's try 2 kinds of hit or 3 kinds of hit. Let's do one with a little more extremity. Let's do one which is a little more soft. And all of these things can be done very fast. So this is something we got in about 2 hours time. So this has had minimal cleanup. We didn't really clean up a lot on this. And we still haven't got the artists to texture the models because we just wanted to see the movement. But in terms of weight distribution, in terms of movement, we really wanted to get it right. And I think the amount of work that was done on that day was very fruitful. So usually I do keep my motion capture sessions only 2 hours, then break, then maybe another 2 hours, because I have noticed that actors tend to get tired. So of course we have to look after the well-being of the performer also. And if your actor is getting tired, the problem with that is that your performance will dip too, like anything else. Like in production, if your team is getting too tired, if they're crunching all the time, the end output is not going to be extremely good in that sense. So you can see here a lot of different poses, a lot of things being done, blah, blah, blah. This is the punch pose. So for this capture, the team came prepared with all their video references, and all we had to do was look at the video reference, go through the list and go like, okay, now we are doing this, now we are doing that. And we got the capture for 3 different characters in that one particular session. So of course there was the golem, there was also the flying superhero that you can see over here. And I'm sure once they clean it up more and they start adding their textures to these characters, they will end up looking a lot more nicer and even better. So the interesting thing about this particular project is this project doesn't have any artists in them. So there was no possible way we could have gotten these animations done because the game designer is taking care of most of the artwork, and he's not a traditionally trained animator or an artist. So we have to use leaner production ways to solve the problem. Okay, that was a lot of fun. Now, on a side note, if you're looking for realistic 3D models, Character Creator 3 by Realusion is a great product. We use that a lot too. And you'll see here, this all is integrated inside Unreal using Light Blink, where you'll even see the face capture. So this too was done around 2 hours. This is done for a previous project. And we have a lot of dialogues in this particular project. So it was really good to be able to build facial expressions, because one of my main philosophies is that it's 2020. No one likes to read loads of text. If you can have face expressions, this emotes things in much better way to the end user. And although I'm showing examples from games and previews here, you can even use it for training and simulation. A lot of training and simulation apps have really bad looking 3D models in them. It immediately takes the user away from the whole experience. So it is really important that we use these things well, and we can use it across different mediums. In fact, even if you're making an app to welcome people to the airport, you can have a 3D model or likeness of a character, and you can do face capture, motion capture, and you can build that. In fact, a lot of the virtual concerts that are coming up now around the world use the technique where they get a DJ from somewhere, they get them to wear the motion capture suit, they copy the DJ's movement as realistically as possible, and then they stream that. So this particular game, it's a very short clip. Everything that you see here was done through motion capture. So every character is built through motion capture over a period of time. All the attacks, all the summoning powers, everything, all the boss battles. And it's a multiplayer game, so we had to do a lot of things, like because there are 4 characters, there are multiple bosses, there are minions. So this was quite a longer process, but again, it wasn't as long as it would have been if we relied on not using motion capture as a tool. So we have benefited immensely from it. We don't really propagate one thing over the other. Ultimately, like whichever suit you use, it needs to fit into your production pipeline. But currently, we are using it for games. We are using it for previs. We are using for VR app. We are also using it for other training and simulation programs. And we have a really smooth integration workflow where we even work with different people in the industry to either build prototypes for them or just give them an idea like, hey, you have a small team, these are the things you could do with it. So I would like to show you a demo right now, for which I will need to stop sharing my screen and I will need to plug in the Rococo device. So just give me a moment on that, so that everything goes smoothly. So this has obviously been quite a long process for us too. It's not that, there is a learning curve, definitely, with the whole motion capture process. So there is a learning curve. It might take 6 to 8 months to understand the device, to understand the suit you're working with, but it's been very, very fulfilling. So a few things. Let me just stop sharing first. So you can see over here, this is a cheap head rig that I've created out of a bike helmet. So I'll use this for face capture. And then for the mocap, I'll be using my suit, of course, So a combination of things. You can get a professional head rig too. It is really up to you what you work with. And just before I show you the, the performance, I do want to show you the suit too. Again, I'm not endorsing anything. This is just something that I prefer. You might have a different preference. So let me stand up. And hopefully you can hear me. So this is the suit. You can see the suit here. And I have my battery right here. And this is the head sensor. So the suit has multiple sensors inside of it. And this is the head sensor. So I'll put on the head sensor before I start doing mocap. So it's a really lightweight suit. You can carry it anywhere. It takes some time to get used to, and it is washable. So, really simple. And I'm streaming this from my house. So you really don't need a big studio to do these things. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my webcam and I'm going to point it towards my laptop, which is connected to the dedicated router. But just before that, I'm also going to show you the low budget head rig of mine. So this is essentially a bike helmet, and I've got my phone attached at the end of it. Really simple to do, nothing complex. But of course, if you can get a professional head rig, I highly, highly, highly would encourage that. It would make the weight a lot more easier. So here I've got my head rig. And I'll just activate the app. Great, I can see my face here. And now I'll take my camera here. So a little bit of dizziness, apologies for that. And you should be able to see my screen here. So what you see right now on the screen is the Rococo model suspended in air. And I haven't mapped it to any avatar, so I'll map it to my own avatar here. And you can see it's kind of sitting, but it's really not calibrated, okay? So first things first, let's just calibrate it. So I put the straight pose. I am posing straight. And you can see me here moving my leg. There can be a lag on the stream, but that's just because we are kind of streaming in different ways. So you can see it's really smooth. So if I want to do poses, if I want to move around, if I want to play a little bit of basketball. So all this is really good, and I can record it, and I can even then export it. But what I'm really interested in showing you is the live link process. So right now I'm here. And what I'll do is I will go to Realusion. Why Realusion? Because if I use the Unreal live link right now, my laptop is going to fry. So I'll just make sure that I'm using the right features. Let me just check, blah, blah, blah. All this looks good. And now what you'll see is when I press preview, hey, now you can see this being streamed in the 3D model. And sorry for the quality. I know it's a bit blurry, so you cannot see it very well. But again, really cool stuff. I can do a lot of poses if I want to. Bring it back, bring it front. The face is also being streamed. You just cannot see it because of the blurry quality. Why am I not using it from my computer itself? The reason being that it's actually not going to stream it very well because it's connected to the Wi-Fi. But let's say I need a quick pose. So you saw how fast that was? So I can do this, and I can do this all day, and I can come up with like different poses, take out my sword, or have a cinematic. So really good capture. And let me move this a little further up. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. And you'll see that even when I pull my chair here, sit down, it will follow me. So really cool stuff, really good stuff. So I'll enter the live demo here. Just give me a moment and I will bring back the camera. Again, apologies for the dizziness. Okay. So that was a lot of fun. And we do that quite often. So it's become like second nature to me right now to do these things and build previs or build any kind of other motion capture, requirements. And I think overall, I do want to say that this has helped us immensely. We only started this about a year ago, and it has become one of our staples when it comes to production. So let me just share my screen again one last time. Just give me a moment. Yeah. So to kind of move on, oops. So do feel free to connect. I'll take some question answers if there are any, but you can always drop me a mail if you want a better demo, or you want to kind of know more about us and how we handle production pipelines in games or previs, or what are the softwares we use. You can drop me an email at curlys@gmail.com. You can add me in LinkedIn. Rahul Nath, or even Discord as Rahul Nath. We have built multiple processes to make production, design, and art as smooth as possible for mid to small teams. And I think that is one of our major goals, and that's something we specialize in, apart from teaching these techniques too. So I will stop my screen share now and let me go and see if there are questions. What affordable tools do you recommend for Unity? Okay, so first question is there. So the same thing. So this motion capture suite, it works across Unity, and that's for all motion capture suites, whether it's Xsense, whether it is a perception neuron. Here I'm just teaching concepts. So whether you're using Unity, you're using Blender, you're using Maya, all the features that I showed, whether it is exporting the mesh or using LiveLink, all this will work across all of this, and they will work really well. So why am I using Reallusion and Unreal is because that's the workflow I like working with, but you might have a different workflow. And how LiveLink or how the suite works, or how these things work, is it is built for multiple softwares. So it's not based on just one very specialized software. The other thing I would recommend, if you do want to have a look, and especially from the art department side, if you are lacking a lot of artists, is Reallusion tools, which are iClone, Character Creator. So a lot of these tools, they come with the animation library. They come with characters where you can generate characters, and then you can turn it into a game base and use it in Unreal or Unity. What do I mean by turning it into game base? Is when you create these characters, they are very high definition, and sometimes you need to lower the polygons for that. So it also converts it for Unity or Unreal, depending on the project you're making. And each of it has their own plugin that you need to kind of grasp, and it takes maybe a week to understand the whole workflow. But once you do it, it is actually extremely smooth, and there's no real issue there. So whatever I showed you here works with Unity, Unreal, Maya, Blender, any of the softwares. And again, if you want to kind of know more, you can even drop me a mail. But depending on your needs, I would like to, think that small things would change here and there. Yes, so if you look at the suite over here, I'll again kind of show you. So there are sensors across the joint. So let me stand up since I'm not using it anymore. So give me a moment. So hopefully you can see all these wires inside, and I don't know how clear you can see this, but these are the suits over here. These are the sensors, and there are three here, 3 on my leg. There are about 3 all the way on the back. So all of this is connected. Let me see, I'm not sure whether you'll be able to see this, but there's a sensor port right at the back over here. You can see the blue light. So that's the main sensor port. So all the wires, everything is connected to that one sensor port. And in terms of washing and everything, you can take away all the wires because it's all connected to the main sensor port, and remove it. And then you can wash this just as your normal laundry. I, in fact, wash it with all my other clothes. Then I put it for drying. Especially with COVID, it's really important to wash and dry. But again, really easy to use, and it kind of picks up on every joint of yours. Okay, do you need a lot of animation cleanup comparing Rococo to mocap with recorded markers and camera? So that's a really good question. So I'll answer this in 2 ways, okay? 2 steps. Your performance capture that I spoke about early is really important. So if you are doing performance capture well, if you're using a dedicated router, and on top of that, if you're, let's say, using LiveLink, because then you can see it directly on the 3D model, your cleanup won't be huge. But I have also had teams who have used it in a way where they did not capture the performance well, they did not think about the performance well, and there the cleanup was a nightmare. So like I always say, the suite is just a tool, and there's a whole pipeline you have to go through with it. Now, the advantage of the suit as opposed to the animations you find in the market, which we also use, by the way, is that sometimes with the animations you find in the market, you might not be able to get a very specific pose you're looking for, like I showed you in all our examples. Maybe you'll get running, jumping, shooting, the poses which are associated with games. But if I showed you, like I showed you the SWAT poses, like I showed you the flying pose, you might not be able to get those. So it gives me a lot more flexibility. But to reduce the cleanup, your performance capture needs to be really good. And I also recommend one thing where you not only record the raw data in Rococo, but you also record it in LiveLink using Maya, Blender, iClone, whatever software you're using. So that's the best process. And usually once we have cracked that process, our cleanup is actually not a lot. So what's the cost of the whole rig? Is it affordable to indie developers? So the different motion capture suits have different costs. I think Xsense was also really good, but one of the reasons we didn't go for it was the cost was very high for it. So for Rococo, the cost was around 1.5K. That's 1,500. I think it's USD, if I'm not wrong, for the suit itself and for the Rococo Studio, which comes with it. However, if you want to use their live link or their virtual production suite, you would have to pay 900 more. So it's about 2.4 overall, 2,400 for everything I showed you, which includes the live link, which means that when you are recording in Rococo, it can be streamed directly to a 3D model. But if you don't need that, and you just want to work with raw data from Rococo, because Rococo has its own cleanup tools too, then it's around 1.5. Same thing for Xsense. From my research about affordable motion capture is that they have done packages where like you have the base and then kind of to top up, in LiveLink or, virtual production, you have these additional costs. So it really depends on your needs, but we spend that 2.5 because the amount of help we got based on that has been immense. A few ways to also reduce your cost if you're doing face capture, like Rococo Remote is free, and a lot of other face capture tools are also free in Unreal. So you can just make a cheap head rig like I did with my bicycle, and you can work on it. So it depends on your budget, but think about it as 2.5. What's your experience with VR capture or using Kinetic for capture? So the experience so far has been a mixed bag. For me, the big issue with VR capture right now is the whole setup with the base stations and everything involved. It really depends on whether you have that kind of a room. We have got good data with it, no doubt, but we have to have a dedicated room in our office in which we do VR capture. So it really depends on, so a lot of this thing now it comes down to the production side of things. So it depends on things like, okay, when I get a motion capture suit or any other production tool, do I have the resources to use it well? For us, luckily, we do have an external room which is specifically dedicated to VR. But then, so why we still use motion capture using Rococo mostly is because I can carry around my laptop. That's what I do in my suitcase. And I'll go from team to team and I'll book a room and I'll go like, this is where we are doing it. And if I don't get a room, because my whole suitcase has the router and everything, I can just do it in some open area, even on a balcony or somewhere else. So that's the big advantage. So in terms of the capture itself, we have got good capture, but it's having the whole base station and having the space and the camera tracking. That is something that is not always feasible if you're doing mid-level development or indie development or you're a new studio. Okay, so what iPhone app is used to capture face animation and how is the face 3D rigged? Okay, so I'll just cover that first and then I'll go to the other one. So there are different iPhone apps depending on the software you're using. So for Rococo, there's called Rococo Remote, okay? And to give you a simple idea of the pipeline, how it would be is, let's say I have a character in Unreal, okay? And you have, like, let's say I want to transfer the capture data from Rococo to Unreal. So there are a couple of ways to do it. One, I just do a normal export. And when I bring in the skeleton from Rococo to Unreal, I retarget it based on the face, based on, all the joints I have. But if I'm using it for, let's say, things like live link, right, depending on my 3D model, I can also use it based on the Unreal facial rig, and I can just map it to Rococo. So yes, your face needs to be rigged, but there are many ways to do it, either through Rococo Remote or through the Unreal Face app, or what I use is essentially the Reallusion Live Face app in itself. So depending on what you're using in iPhone and your production pipeline, you can use 3 of these apps. But of course, your skeleton needs to have its facial joint rig too, because if it doesn't, then you cannot really map or retarget it. So in our case, we use it with, let's say, there are some models in Mixamo, which have the entire body rigged and the face rigged too. So in that case, you can just retarget it and then Rococo will transfer the data. That is another topic because you need to create an animation blueprint for it. And then you need to go step by step and create the retargeting, which can take a lot of time. And that's why I just prefer to have it in my parent software like Reallusion and just transfer it directly from there. Okay, so there are many ways to do it, and the 3 apps that are there are Rococo Remote, Unreal Live Face, and from Reallusion, it's the Live Link Face. If you just had one person experience in animation, is it better to use him as the actor or let him direct the session with a random team member or actor? So another great question. It depends. Okay, so when I think of the actor, right, I'm not looking at it in terms of whether it's the animator or the programmer or the designer. I'm looking at the actor. My criteria for the actor is I'm looking at people who can be freely perform. So I have had animators who are very good in performance, and I've also had animators who are not very good in performance, okay? So my main requirement for the actor is he needs to be flexible. He needs to be very okay with making a fool of himself because, sometimes we do the recording and there are 7 other people around who are watching. If you're conscious, your performance will suffer. So for the actor, like one tip, I know this, not everyone can afford it, but I like if the actor has a dancing background or likes dancing, I like it because the person's movement and their creativity will be a lot better. In terms of director, I feel like the animator can be the director, which would be a great fit because they would have visualized the poses better. They would have understood in their mind that, like sometimes, okay, to give you an example, I was recently doing a mocap session where there were only game designers involved. And when they came in, they were like, let's do an idle pose. And they just did one idle pose. And then they were like, let's do another pose. And I had to stop them. I said, take 3 to 4 idle poses because in your game, you can loop between them, and your poses won't look stagnant. So that would be an advantage of having an animator as a director. I would be very particular about who I pick as an actor and who I pick as a director, not so much as who I pick in terms of, let's say, reference or using the props and all. Those could be anyone. Okay, so I think we have got all the questions. So I really hope this session was helpful for all of you. And of course, if you ever need any help, do feel free to reach out. And hopefully this session could help you guys to explore more on your own. So thanks a lot for the session.